So you're looking for a sporty crossover that can still handle some off-road adventure, but you're sick of seeing 12 Escapes in every parking lot, and you're not willing to suffer the sacrifices of the Jeep Renegade. Well, the Subaru Crosstrek might be just what you're looking for. Here in the States, it's always been positioned as a wholly separate vehicle, but back in Japan, it's known as the Impreza XV. Basically, just an Impreza hatchback with a raised suspension, some larger wheels, and some styling tweaks too, like the gray fender flares. It's a pretty common move for Subaru, and Impreza is a great platform to start with too. Up until this year, we called it the XV Crosstrek, but Subaru decided to drop the XV this year for a mid-cycle refresh. They also revised the front end and added the Starlink suite for some emergency services like an SOS button, automatic collision notification, stolen vehicle recovery, and a vehicle monitoring app. Plus, they finally added some safety features like blind spot monitoring and lane change assist and rear cross traffic alert. Those features are really nice to have, especially in a vehicle like this where you're likely to take some longer trips and along some scenic highways that make it so difficult to keep your eyes on the road. You know, just a few gentle beeps, and I know my attention has wandered a bit too far. Also, I had a truck slam on its brakes in front of me in the rain, cruising at about 60 miles an hour, and evasive maneuvers were handled here with no drama, thanks due to the Impreza platform and all-wheel drive, no doubt. Subaru anticipates owners will be taking their Crosstreks on camping excursions and the like, so the seats all have more durable fabric, and there's a removable waterproof mat in the trunk for wet dogs and muddy shoes. Plus, space is ample for passengers and camping supplies, with a spacious rear seat and 22.3 cubic feet of storage, expanding to 51.9 with those seat backs lowered. That said, a lot of the competition beats those numbers easily. So what's wrong with the Crosstrek? Well, while the interior is a big improvement over most Subaru offerings, there's soft touch materials just nearly everywhere here. It's really nice. I find the seats to not be very supportive. My back starts hurting after about an hour. And I know I'm tall at 6'4", but when I sit up straight here, I've barely enough headroom, and it's just a little uncomfortable. Also, the audio system leaves a little bit to be desired, and there's no option for an upgrade. So at highway speeds, when that 2-liter Boxer and CVT are droning and groaning along, it can get kind of hard to hear. And that brings us to the other big complaint with the Crosstrek, the powertrain. The 2-liter Boxer engine here develops 145 pound-feet of torque at 4,200 RPM and 148 horsepower at 6,200. That's pretty high in the rev range, and it's not a lot of power for a car that weighs in at 3,200 pounds. Consequently, the Crosstrek will take about 10 seconds to hit 60 miles an hour, and highway passing does require a bit of planning. The paddle shifters will help you get those revs up, but there's still not an overwhelming amount of power to be had. By comparison, the Mazda CX-3 is a nearly identical power rating, but it will make it to 60 a second and a half quicker, and that leads me to believe it's the CVT that's providing the limitation here. Plus, CVT-equipped Crosstreks come with a different all-wheel drive system than those with the manual transmission. That all-wheel drive system has a 50-50 power split front and rear, while this one is more front-biased, with the ability to send more power rearward when traction calls for it. These are all attempts to squeeze a bit more economy out of the setup, with the Crosstrek in this configuration delivering 29 miles per gallon combined, with 26 city and 34 highway. The manual drops to 26 combined, with 23 city and 31 highway, and if you think the hybrid will solve this little dilemma, you only gain 2 miles per gallon combined over the CVT, with 30 city and 34 highway. More than that, it only adds 12 horsepower and 18 pound-feet of torque to compensate for an extra 300 pounds of weight. That doesn't seem like a very good trade-off. Now, there's an STI version coming, but the enhancements there are all cosmetic or suspension related, no power upgrades, so that's really not going to solve the problem. Or maybe there's not even a problem. For you current Crosstrek owners, have you noticed needing more power? Let me know in the comments. Because if power isn't a concern, the Crosstrek's a great option with good ground clearance, agile handling, and the lowest center of gravity in the segment. Want to know more? Click the link in the description. You can head over to CarGurus.com and read my full review of the 2016 Subaru Crosstrek.